I hate that I had to buy this plugin. Plugin demos are a tricky thing. They can really get you. I'm going to show you this plugin and how it changed a mix entirely for me. What I really want to show you is that I mixed this song without this plugin, and then I remixed it, taking everything off my mix bus and my master bus, and then just putting the God particle on and remixed the song from scratch with that plugin on. And we can compare which one turned out better and how different they turned out, which is really the fascinating part. Like, we'll talk about the plugin, of course, but I think the key takeaway of this video is going to be, wow, what you mix into can make such a huge, huge difference. Mixing the same song just with a different chain. Let me just show you. Let's get into that. The song is Villains by Darian Gerard. Check her out if you haven't already. Here's the original mix. This is the first mix I did without having the God particle. Okay, you kind of get the idea. Fun pop punk song. And that's, yeah, my first pass was like, okay, this is kind of what I think I'm going to send. But I wasn't really feeling it, honestly. Maybe you also thought that sounded just kind of not it, not pro enough. I certainly did. And I tried tweaking that one many times and it just wasn't getting there. That's where I landed with that one before I finally said, well, let's try something new. And Jason Joshua, one of the world's best and most famous mixers. I got to interview him on my podcast, The Self-Recording Band. Go check that out if you're a Jason Joshua fan. Really fun chat. He made this plugin and he talked a lot about how it's the only thing he runs through now. And a lot of people have actually told me that they really love this plugin. A lot of people using it in hybrid with other plugins, but I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. And what stuck with me, though, is how Jason talked about mixing through it and how it informed his decisions on transients, which, again, I'll play this. The transients aren't happening. There was a problem there. So I said, okay, let's demo the God particle, this plugin, and give it a go. So I did that. I slapped it on my mix bus, took everything else off the mix and master buses, and just had this one plugin, and then remix the song from the top, essentially. I did leave a lot of plugins like on the tracks kind of thing, but I kind of went into it with like, all right, I'm starting over. I think I might have bypassed them all. Can't really remember, but it was essentially, let's pretend we're remixing the song and just see how it turns out. And this is where we landed. That's way more exciting, right? Like, to me, that sounds more polished, it sounds wider, but in a great way. It still has more punch than the other one, even though it sounds wider. It's like also better center information. It's just like a more finished, exciting mix. Exciting is probably the thing, where this actually has the feeling I want, which is like this lively, anthemic pop punk song, which I wasn't getting before. It just didn't have that life, which is crazy because that's like all I did was just change my mix bus and then mix into that. So it's not just a magic plugin you can slap on, but that is something I want to try in this video. This session we're actually looking at is another Darian Gerard song. And I want to just try plopping this onto the mix bus to see what happens there. But before we get there, let's just do a little A-B comparison of those two mixes again. I'm just going to swap it in and out. The top one here is the original. This is the God particle one down here. Maybe I'll rename that so it's easy to spot. Okay, I'm just going to punch it in and out as we play. Pretty wild. Also worth mentioning that original mix, which again, to me, maybe it's different to you, please let me know in the comments, took me forever. Like, I was battling. You know, some mixes go smooth, some are a bit of a battle. This one was a battle. And then The God Particle mix, the one that we actually released, that took like all of 6 hours or so. Now, some of that was time saved from my original efforts because I kept like my automation changes for volume between sections and stuff. It kind of like sped some of that up. But overall, it was like, now I'm just mixing. I was in a flow state. Great. So we can safely say, I think that the God Particle version of Villain by Darian Gerard turned out immensely better, is more fun. It feels better. It sounds better. It sounds more professional. It's more scooped, but I don't think that's a problem unless it sounds too scooped to you. To me, I think I'm stoked. Darian was very stoked. This was literally a 0 revision mix. Gotta love those. I mean, there was many revisions for me before I sent it to her, but once we got this and I did the God Particle mix and sent that to her, it was the first time she had heard it. She was like, yep, that's it. Done. So that was exciting. Love that. Now, let's go look at Explosion, another of Darian's songs. And we've got the God Particle sitting on the chain here. I've just thrown it right before the limiter, and I've turned off the limiter in the plugin, which I would recommend. The limiter sounds good, but it has overages that can be noticeable, like bad distortion in my mind. So even if you were going to use the limiter in the God Particle, I would actually put like a true peak limiter behind it. But for this, I'm just going to turn off the limiter, and we're just really looking at the magic stuff that's happening in here. And I'll tell you some tips about how to use this plugin while we're at it. Okay, so here's the song without the God Particle.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources.
Now let's turn it on. I'm just going to default some stuff here so you can see me do it. Other than that, I've turned the limiter off.
I've expired.
First thing I notice, it's louder. I'm going to turn it down. Let's just go down 1.5 dB.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources.
Okay, that's pretty close volume. Next thing you're going to want to do is actually push a little bit into it. And you'll have to make that up on the output as well. Unfortunately, there's no kind of like auto leveling there. But I found that you want to hit this target on the hot side.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources, and I'm so tired of trying to be someone else again.
All right. You know what? I'm going to go even further. Let's go to 3.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources.
So now we've got them level matched. That's really all I was listening, but we can actually kind of bypass in and out and think about it sonically now. You always want to level pass before you listen to what one you like best, because we tend to like louder things. So if we're in the like a pretty close volume match, it should be easier to tell which one sounds better. So start off again.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources, and I'm so tired of trying to be someone else.
So the sides are definitely getting louder, but the center is pretty matched. Maybe we'll split the difference here just a little bit to make sure we're not getting tricked. It sounds better with it. I think again, it's helping.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources, and I'm so tired.
So wider is the first thing I noticed. And I noticed that with the first example too, that when the God Particle is running, there's definitely some like side widening stuff happening that so far I've liked in both of these cases. Sounds more polished. The lead vocal sounds a little more smooth as well. Let's really just listen to the lead vocal starting off.
I've expired. I've exhausted my resources, and I'm so tired.
It's almost like it's smoothened out the peaks a little bit, where the transients of the vocal on my original version were jumping out a little bit more. This has kind of got them rounded off really nicely. Let's just head to a more extreme part, and I'll toggle it in and out again. I think there's a cool little thing here.
I'd stop right now, I'm a loaded gum and my lies about me and tells everyone epitome of a washed-up gone wrong.
All right, so it's kind of mild here, how much of a difference it's making, but it is a little bit improved, I think. Honestly, I would probably love to have that there. It's not as dramatic of a difference as the example before because we're just slapping it on a mix and being like, do magic. That's really all we've done. We've just sent a certain amount of gain into it and said, do we like this? We haven't tweaked anything out of it than that. But it does sound good, which is, I mean, that speaks to the strength of this plugin, I think. Mixing into it was a totally different experience, and I recommend you do that. I don't think you necessarily have to use this as the only plugin that you're mixing into, but it is a good one to mix into. It definitely informs transient decisions really nicely. It informs width decisions really nicely, and it imparts a pretty cool kind of curve to things that seems to work out well for modern sounding music. Worth mentioning what's going on here. We're sending gain into this target area, which is kind of the sweet spot for the processing that happens. And there's not a lot that you can do there. You can pretty much control the blend up to 200%. Have a listen. You can hear those sides getting really loud as I crank it there. So that's a widening something going on there. And then you've got this target here. So we got our target over here that we want to hit for the processing. And then this is kind of actually just a reference curve. Jason talked about this a little bit when I met him and saw him in Hamburg last year. And he can glance at this, and if he sees the mids and the lows here getting hit and occasionally a flicker up here, he knows that he's kind of on track for a curve. If it sounds good to him and that's where things are living, he knows that he's kind of like, it's working. That's his reference. I kind of have similar workflows to that using this app here. I like to have this on rock. And if I'm hitting this curve more or less, I know that I'm pretty on target. It's not always exact, but it does help just be like, all right, my ears aren't playing tricks on me. This sounds like it looks. So that's useful. I don't pay too much attention to it when using the God particle because that's Jason's curve, not mine. But that said, we're kind of doing it. So that's great. Now, over here, there's what looks like an EQ, but Jason has also talked about this, where he wishes it was not called EQ. He kind of said he wishes it was called like push or pull. And it's more about like pushing those frequency bands into this processing, I believe. That's how I've understood it anyways. And I think I used that on that first example there. So let's see. I think I'm going to let it play, see where things are hitting, and see if I want to try pushing a little further. So we're definitely living more in those sweet spots. I'm not making that high thing flicker at all, but I'm not worried about it. That very top of my mix sounds fine to me. I think the cymbals aren't getting in the way, distracting or anything like that. So now let's do another game pass or game match and then compare. I can tell that the mid's being pushed. I'm not liking that. Honestly, I think all the changes I've made here, I'm not digging. Let's just go back. Maybe a slight boost, but that really just kind of proves the old adage of mix with your ears, not with your eyes. Don't be pushing these about looking at this because you're not really mixing then. You're just trying to appease this graphic interface. Wouldn't worry about that too much. It works for Jason, but I think I'll just keep this as my similar system for that. But the processing that is happening here is good. I think we'd probably all agree that the mix with it, that I showed you earlier is definitely the better of the two, and I think it's doing a minor improvement on this mix. Who knows if I'd mixed through it from the start, maybe even better. Like I said, I kind of hate having to buy things, but when you demo something and then it like kicks ass and you're like, now I gotta buy it. I need it. And even if I didn't want to use it on future mixes, which I absolutely do, I have to have it for that client in case, I was like, well, what if Jeremy wants a revision next week? My 7-day trial's up or whatever it is. I think it's like 7 or 14-day trial for this. Go check it out. Totally non-affiliated. I just wanted to try it after meeting Jason Joshua and chatting with them back in Hamburg at Studio Zene, which is a conference that's super kick-ass that you should go to next year. I'm going to be there again with my friend Benny and the Self-Recording Band podcast. Good times. Hope you enjoyed this. Kind of just like, wow, this thing sounds cool. And I think people might be curious to see what it sounds like. Hope it helped. Hope you give it a shot for yourself. And if you got any questions or thoughts, please comment them down below. Would love to hear from you. And I'll have another video for you next week, of course. Don't forget to subscribe. Adios. Bye.